Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel for a chill and chatty book haul. Just thought it'd be nice to sit down and catch up on all the books I've been buying and that have been sent from publishers that you might be interested in. Life is pretty wild right now. I'm still very much in recovery slash processing the whole PhD thing. I've not had my Viva. I feel like I'm talking about this constantly at the moment, but it's what's on my mind, and I've also had quite a few big projects work-wise going on, so yeah, my mood's been very much so, and I've been feeling pretty anxious, which has put a slight pause on some of the bigger projects I planned for YouTube, but hopefully in the next few weeks you will get something along the lines of my first video essay, which I'm super excited for. But yeah, in the meantime I thought let's just do a chill and chatty, happy, comforting old book haul. So let's start with the ones I bought myself before I jump into the ones I've been sent for review. Now first up, I have one I've actually already read, so I can share my thoughts briefly on it, and it's Harley, which is a standalone one-shot comic book in the DC universe about Harley Quinn, or Dr. Harleen Quinzel as you may know her, and basically her journey into what becomes her Harley Quinn storyline, if that makes sense. So we follow Harleen when she's still Harleen, when she's a doctor, and the sort of medical trial she wants to be involved in, and how she meets the Joker, and how she then like descends through their relationship. And I read this because I have been wanting to get into Harley Quinn comics a little bit more. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm that interested in like Batman as a hero or even necessarily the Joker, but I think Harley Quinn's a really interesting character that there's been a lot more discussion about recently, with like the Suicide Squad films, with Birds of Prey, with the Harley Quinn TV show, cartoon, that I think are starting to like address some of like the toxicity in their relationship and like look at how the things that happened, if that makes sense. And I'm really enjoying getting into that. So yeah, I picked this one up. It came out quite recently, I think. Obviously this is still a hardback. It came out in 2020, so it's not like the most recent thing, but I read it and really enjoyed it. I have some background on DC, having seen some films. Never read a DC superhero universe comic before, so don't know anything about that, and this was very accessible. It didn't feel like I needed a ton of background. I think I googled a couple of like the names in it just to clarify some things for me, but I don't even know if that was entirely necessary to still enjoy the book. And I really want to carry on with my Harley Quinn journey. Here's some of the illustrations for anyone that's interested. I want to explore more. The thing about any superhero or supervillain comic books is that there's a lot of divergent storylines and different artists and writers who've worked on them, so I'm not exactly sure where I should go next. I might try a few different things and see what fits. If you've got any recommendations, let me know. And I was also partly thinking of just like doing a video or a vlog about getting into a specific supervillain and getting into a specific subset of like the superhero comic book genre and like fandom and nerddom, because sometimes those spaces can seem very inaccessible and there can be a lot of gatekeeping around them. But I think I'm really intrigued by Harley, really enjoyed this, and would like to learn more and read more. So yeah, if that's a video you'd been interested in, let me know. But in the meantime, if you're looking to jump in somewhere, pick this up. It's really good. It's very dark and quite graphic in places, but it's very good as well. Then I do in fact have two more graphic novels or comic books, and the first one, I don't know if it's going to show up very well. Oh, okay, it doesn't show up too badly on the camera. It's the first bind up in the like collected editions of Sailor Moon. So this is the Eternal editions. So rather than being small mangas, they collect like a few volumes in one place, a bit like my Cardcaptor Sakura collected volumes. And I have never read Sailor Moon. I've never watched Sailor Moon. I really know nothing about Sailor Moon, but based on my other interests, my partner has often told me how much he thinks I would like Sailor Moon. He really likes it and thinks it's something I would enjoy, and I do think he's right based on like the little bit of googling I've done and just my understanding of the genres I like in manga. So I finally caved. I decided to pick it up and, you know, jump in with the first volume. Don't really know much. It's a pretty famous manga slash anime, so you probably know as much as I do, if not a lot more. We have Sailor Moon, who's a high school student with magical powers maybe, and then there's like other girls at her school, or that she knows I have magical powers too, and they probably fight evil, which is fun. A little bit like Cardcaptor Sakura. So yeah, I am looking forward to finally getting into Sailor Moon. That's another fan. Maybe I should just do like more reading vlogs about getting into fandoms, and I could also like watch relevant stuff as well. So Sailor Moon could be one, who knows. But then lastly, a comic book I'd never actually heard of before. It's another one-shot standalone. I just picked it up on a whim when I saw it in the bookstore, and it's Luna by Maria Lovett. I was initially pulled in by this artwork. It's stunning. I love how psychedelic it is. I love all the colours, and this is what it looks like inside. The artwork is equally as beautiful. It's a magical thriller from the blurb. I again had never heard of it before, so didn't know anything going into it. I'll read the back since that's what got me. Meet Teresa, a young woman who's plagued by prophetic dreams that lead to a fateful meeting with the family of the sun, a burgeoning cult whose leader claims to have met the divine. Secret blood rituals, powerful drugs and sexual awakening will bring Teresa face to face with the truth about the family and the dark secret behind her dreams. Immortality, magic and alchemy and the true power of enduring love collide in this new thriller from acclaimed writer and artist Maria Lovett. Yeah, so just sounded interesting. Looking forward to reading it. Then we get into, you know, the old textbooks, the non-graphic novel type. Actually, something a little bit different that I'll mention is this book here. This is the Ordinance Survey puzzle book. This I think is the first one they did. They've got quite a few in this series. And it reads, pit your wits against Britain's greatest map makers. It's a puzzle book basically, but it's a really interesting style of puzzle book. You get these close-up maps of areas of Britain, and they're actually over time, so some of them are older maps, so they wouldn't be like the current contemporary map of an area. I don't know if I can find one like that. It's I don't like know my maps really well, so yeah, they're over time, and it tells you what time the map is from. Okay, yeah, so this one's from the 1800s, and then you'll get like more contemporary ones in there as well. That looks pretty contemporary to me, with a series of questions. We've got easy, medium, tricky and challenging questions, and you can work your way through it. And I bought this to do with my partner, and we've already done a few of the maps. It was a lot of fun. It's a nice thing to do if you're on a train or if you're travelling, and I'm sure we'll just like dip in and out of it when occasion arises, particularly I think in those travelling environments. But they're a lot of fun. We love doing puzzles together, and this was one that I thought looked a little bit different from your crossword or Sudoku or just quiz book, so I like that. And I also thought it might be a fun way to sort of get little insights into little bits of Britain I don't know much about, because you know, my geography is not like the best. So I liked the idea of it and decided to pick it up. Then we do have some proper books, novels and non-fiction. Two non-fiction books in fact, so let's start with those. The first one is The Monstrous Feminine, Film, Feminism and Psychoanalysis by Barbara Creed. I actually picked this up in the gift shop at the Vagina Museum in London, which is the first ever museum of its kind, and they have an amazing book selection. They're basically a bookstore. Like, their gift shop feels like a bookstore. It's so exciting to peruse, and I decided to treat myself to this one. It was a little bit expensive, so I only went for one book because academic publishing is extortionate. It's because they don't print as many copies, which then raises the cost of each individual copy, but it does add to the inaccessibility of certain academic topics. This one, in saying that, was under £30 I think, which for academic publishing is actually pretty cheap, but not cheap in the real world, if that makes sense. And yeah, it's basically a non-fiction analysis of the monstrous feminine in things like horror films. We have an examination of films like the Alien Trilogy, The Exorcist, Psycho, and looking at the different faces of monstrosity in women in those films. So you get a lot of different types of, you know, monstrous women. You get like the very monstrous one, you get the seductress one, and all the stereotypes that play into that. So I think that'll be really, really interesting. Then lastly, for non-fiction, we have Whatever Next on Adult Adoptee Identities by Josephine J, Adeline Barra and Hannah Febin Smith. So this is 3 authors working together on the 404 Inkling series. Love, love, love these little books. Oh, they're so good, and they're such interesting little deep dives on topics that I'm kind of keen to pick up every single one and just learn something new. I think this is such an interesting topic from what I'm reading in the blurb and what I've like seen online since picking this book up, that I think it would be really interesting to get the perspective of some adoptees, because a lot of the media I realise I consume that talks about adoption is always from the perspective of the adopter. you rarely hear about the experiences of adoptees, and perhaps that is just generally the dismissal of childhood experiences, so I think this will be really, really interesting. Then we have some novels, and the first one is this book here, which is Nettleback by Nat Reeve. I picked this up in Golden Hair Books in Edinburgh, which is one of my favourite indie bookshops, and let's be honest, I picked this up because of the cover initially. That was what drew me to it. It is beautiful. It's published by Cypher Press, who I'm not actually particularly familiar with, but this is gorgeous. It also has French flaps. Who doesn't love a French flap? And then I read the blurb and it sounded brilliant, so I'll read that to you. In 1893, Henry Nettleback has to act fast, or she'll be married off by her elder sister. But leaving the safety of her wealthy life isn't as simple as she thought. Ambushed, robbed, and then saved by a mysterious organisation. Part detective agency, part neighbourhood watch, a desperate Henry disguises herself and enlists. Sent out to investigate a string of crimes, she soon realises that she's living in a small, rural town with surprisingly big problems. When the net starts to close around Henry and the sinister forces threaten to expose her as the missing Nettleback sister, the new people in her life seem to offer her a way out and a way forward. Is the world she's lost and also a place she can find herself? Told through journal entries and letters, so it's an epistolary novel, Nettleback is a subversive and playful ride through the perils and joys of finding your place in the world, challenging myths about queerness, particularly transness, as a modern phenomenon while exploring the practicalities of articulating queer perspectives when you're struggling for words. But I'll let you know when I read it and what my thoughts are. So then two more novels. The first one I won't say too much about because I've mentioned it in a few videos recently. It was in my last TBR video. Maybe that's actually the only video I mentioned it in, but I talked about it a lot there, and that's Things Bryson Beautiful by Anbara Salam, and I picked this up because it's actually the first read for Literature Lassies. So Literature Lassies is a book club that myself, Leanne, Amy and Jill are all going to be hosting. We are all Scottish lassies on the nose, yes, and we really want to read the diverse array of Scottish literature that's out there, old and contemporary, and decided to start with this one, which is by a Scottish Palestinian author, and it's set on a remote island in the Pacific, following a woman who has followed her preacher husband there to, you know, educate the natives, which is obviously massively problematic, but it is a feature of history, and explore the sort of madness that starts to descend around her and her husband, which sounds really, really interesting. So yeah, if you're interested in our book club, I'll link the Instagram page that we started down below. There will basically be a live show every 2 months to discuss the book that we picked, either on mine or Leanne's channel, as we're the only ones with YouTube channels, and we are reading all things Things Bright and Beautiful, not All Things Bright and Beautiful, over October and November. Then lastly for novels, I picked up Babel, which I've just been hearing such amazing things about. This is by R.F. Kuang, who wrote the Poppy Wars, I believe. I've not read that, I've never read anything by this author, but what I understand is this is a dark academia book that explores the inherent racism and potentially classism in the whole academic environment and the dark academia trope, which is something I really want to do a video on, particularly the problematic classist nature of the dark academia genre, or at least the romanticization of dark academia, because I think that'd be a really interesting topic, especially somebody who studied classics university, which is one of the go-to dark academia subjects, and who is from a working class background and who has seen their fair share of classism in those fields and in academia. So yeah, I would like to do that video, which is off topic. I'm basically just telling you all the videos I want to film in this video. However, I also really want to read this. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. I've heard really, really good things about it, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I do have two more books I bought myself, and they're both children's picture books because I love me a children's picture book. Maybe it's because I'm a children's book author in part that I love them. I don't know, I think they're just fantastic and you should never grow out of them. If you have left them behind in your adult years, try going back, because honestly they're full of fun information. And this is Passionate About Penguins, which I think I've got some dirt on, so that's great. But I picked this up in Ginger and Pickle, which is a children's bookshop here in the UK. Here in Edinburgh, also in the UK, but specifically here in Edinburgh, that I love. Ginger and Pickle is beautiful. They always have such a unique selection of children's books that you wouldn't necessarily see elsewhere. They also stock YA as well, so all age ranges, and it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful bookshop, and I picked up this book when I was there, actually signing some copies of Egyptian Myths. So I don't know if they still have some, but they did have some signed copies of Egyptian Myths, which is my new book. And this is by Owen Davey. This is part of a series Owen Davey does with Flying Eye books about different animals. I love these books. He's done Fanatical about frogs, Bonkers about beetles, so many other ones I just forget. There's like one about big cats, I just can't remember the title. And this is Passionate about penguins, and it's a non-fiction book about penguins, and these are genuinely full of so much information. Like if you don't know much about a specific animal, then this is the place to start your journey. These books are packed full of interesting facts and beautifully illustrated, which is a bonus. So yeah, love those. And then I picked up The Culture of Clothes, a celebration of world dress by Giovanna Alessio and Chaya Prabhat. This just looked absolutely stunning. I've never seen a children's book on this specific topic. I love this idea. Yeah, I've just never seen a book on this topic for children, and I think it's beautiful. It just goes to show there's still so much to explore in literature. Yeah, we have, for example, this is South Korea. I don't know if it specifically focuses on like traditional garb, but this is Panama. We have Spain. We have Norway, and yeah, it looks at some of the traditional clothing, the significance of that clothing, the history of that clothing. Kenya, it just looks stunning. The illustrations are beautiful, which is always a bonus. But I think I'm going to really enjoy learning a lot from this book as well. It feels quite chunky. It looks like it covers a really wide array. Like, look, there's a lot in here. So I'm looking forward to reading it and learning about the clothing from these different cultures and countries. I wonder if Scotland's in here. I never checked. Do you want to bet it's a kilt? Let's have a look. We've got Asia, Europe. Okay, Europe. Yeah, okay, in Europe we have Spain, Czech Republic, Norway, Portugal, Germany, France and Scotland, and the focus is the Highland kilt. Which, yeah, not surprised by, but still fun. Oh, he is looking dapper indeed. So yeah, I think I'm going to really enjoy that. Oh look, it's even got little information about the ski and do. A kilt knife, often with a decorative handle, is often kept tucked inside the top of long stockings. Does it not mention what it's called? If you're interested, the knife that's traditionally worn with a kilt in the sock is called a ski and do. So there you go, there's a fun fact for today. But those looked beautiful and I couldn't resist, so yeah, excited to read them. We then have some books that were sent to me, one of which was just a gift from a family member. So my Aunt Linda sent me this book, which is a collection of poetry called The Hind Bars, and it's a collection of poetry by a poet called Lady Unchained, and the subtitle is On Punishment, Prison and Release. And all these poems are inspired by her experiences of the prison system and how having been in prison, about the racism in the prison system, about being a woman in the prison system, and I think this is going to be really interesting. I'm always looking for new poets to check out, and particularly when I think they're on like really important, you know, pertinent contemporary topics, which I think this one's going to be. It was a really good pick from Linda. She always finds the best political books, like she's always really up on new and interesting books dealing with politics and social issues. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this, and it was a very kind gift for submitting my PhD thesis, so that was really thoughtful. I really appreciate that. We then have some books that were sent to me by publishers. Actually, I'm going to start with this one because it's in a box, which means it's important, doesn't it? So this book says, Lies we sing to the sea, save us, avenge us, hurt them as they have hurt us. And I was sent this by the publisher, of course, as it's true of all the books coming up next, but it is a proof of Lies We Sing to the Sea by Sarah Underwood, and it is such a cool proof because look, they've embossed, well not embossed, they've printed my name on the side, which is just so nice. Like, it feels very special when you get a proof like this. And this is published by Electric Monkey, and it's a novel inspired by Greek mythology, and it's a semi-retelling of the Odyssey. Like, it's not a straightforward retelling of like the Odyssey from start to finish. It's specifically looking at the possible experiences of Penelope's maids. So Penelope's maids are really interesting characters from the Odyssey that really don't get their dues in ancient literature because they are slaves, and they really get very little attention and respect in the original material. So this is looking at what they might have thought and felt and experienced during the events surrounding Penelope and Odysseus, which I think is really interesting. I really like when people take characters who've been overlooked from mythology and explore their specific experiences. So yeah, looking forward to this. Then on the topic of mythology, actually, I have 3 super exciting books. Like, super exciting. I am so excited for these. Published by Flame Tree Books, and they're all about mythology. So first up, the big one. This is Persian Myths and Tales, which is part of the Epic Tales collection published by Flame Tree. And these are just fantastic books from a fantastic publisher. Flame Tree publish a really wide variety of collected mythologies and folklores from around the world, collected and edited by scholars and people from those cultures. And this right here is one of those books. So this is obviously Persian Myths and Tales, so this is Myths and Tales from ancient Persia. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm adding nothing with my description because the title says it all, but I am so excited to have this collected volume here. Like, I have encountered, read and enjoyed Persian mythology in the past. It was part of my degree. I've also just read it for my own personal edification, but I own very few books like this. There are very few books like this, in fact, that collect Persian myths. The focus is often on like Norse, Greek and Roman, so it's really nice to see books like this available, more widely available for different cultures, and I think this is fantastic. Then we have these two gorgeous little books in a newer series that they are releasing, which are their collector's editions. So these both came out this year, I believe, and these are 2022 releases, and there are quite a few other books in this series, which is terrible for me because I know I'm going to have to buy the rest of them because I need the whole collection, obviously. Like, I can't just have two, but the two I do have that they very kindly sent me are African Myths and Legends and Scottish Folk and Fairy Tales. So I just love these. Look how beautiful they are, and they've got foiled edges, like sprayed edges, get out of here. Foiled edges? What? These are beautiful. And again, just really well put together. So yeah, really pleased to see more of these little books more widely available, and I do love a nice edition. So no doubt I'll be picking up more of these, but in the meantime, this is what I've added to my collection, which I love. Add them to the other massive pile of folktale and fairy tale and mythology books I own. It's not getting any smaller. We then have two more books I've been sent by the publishers, and the first one is a gorgeous new edition of The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. So this is a fantasy classic that came out in the 20th century. It's been around for a long time now. It's been a big inspiration on the fantasy genre. However, it's not had a new edition in the UK for a long time, which is really interesting. And that has been one of the reasons it's also been harder to buy in the UK. Like, the editions in the UK are quite expensive because they are US editions. But no longer. Gallant have published this gorgeous new edition and brought it back to make it more accessible for us all, which is super duper exciting. And this is a classic that I've always meant to read. Like I said, it's pretty well regarded. It feels like one of those books that people talk a lot about, so I'm looking forward to finally catching up on all of the hype. And the new edition is beautiful. Look at that illustrated. It looks sort of etched, doesn't it? It looks like it's been etched or lino cut for the cover, which is gorgeous. If you haven't heard of this book, then let me tell you what it's about. Living in peace in her lilac wood, the unicorn didn't know the world had changed, or that anything had happened to the rest of her kind. Overhearing a chance conversation, she resolves to venture out and discover the truth. The road is dangerous and the risks are great. If she fails, then unicorns will be lost forever. Why did those few sentences make me kind of emotional? But I'm excited to have that, and it's also really beautiful. And then lastly, another book inspired by another classic is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas. So this is the author of Cemetery Boys, which you've probably heard of. That book has had a lot of hype. The blurb reads, 5 years ago, Wendy and her two brothers, yes, you might be able to tell what classic this is based on, vanished into the woods. She was the only one who returned. Well, that's a slightly different take on Peter Pan. Now children are starting to disappear and the townsfolk are coming to Wendy for answers. Desperate to flee her past, Wendy encounters Peter, a boy she thought lived only in her imagination, who begs for her help to rescue the missing kids. But in order to find them, Wendy must confront what's waiting for her in the woods. Sounds intriguing. And that brings us to the end of this video. Those were all the books I've added to my bookcases over the past month or two. I hope you have enjoyed learning about them. There's some really beautiful books in here. Like, I've definitely been drawn to the beautiful books of late, which has been really nice and I've been enjoying it. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, what you thought of them, if you would like me to create vlogs around any of them like I sort of mentioned in the beginning there, and if you have any recommendations for where to read next with Harley Quinn comics, that would be really helpful. So yeah, until next time, happy reading and I'll see you all again soon. Bye everyone!